the reason why that's so important, I think this will be a case that goes to the Supreme Court without question. It will be the most significant decision in the last 50 years regarding personal liberty and the boundaries of government in our lives. And it's a very serious matter. When we think about this thing that's called individual mandate, it says just because tonight you're sitting in a chair in this room doing nothing but listening to me, that you can be penalized, taxed perhaps, because you did not buy a product, in this case an insurance policy, a health insurance policy. There's no enumerated power in the United States Constitution that gives you that gives Congress that right to do that. And I say that because a lot of people confuse this about states' rights or the 10th Amendment. When the Founding Fathers, I mentioned a minute ago, after the Declaration of Independence, after the Revolutionary War, in writing the Constitution, they set forth very clearly, these are the powers that Congress and the federal government have, and everything we don't mention belongs to the states. And they meant it. They meant it. They meant it. And there is absolutely no enumerated power that gives Congress the right to do what they just did and tell you you've got to buy a product for just sitting there and not doing anything else. Now, I know that when we go to the Supreme Court, and we're going to go through that, we've had the motion to dismiss filed. We'll port that off. I'm sure we're going to have a hearing in September on it. I'm hoping the court rules this year yet. I think Judge Vincent may very well. He's very fast. While we filed it out there in the first place, we thought he would rule quickly, and we wanted to get on with it, whatever his ruling is, and get on up there. It'll probably be a 5-4 decision. I don't know if it'll be next year or 2012. Hope it's not as long as 2013, but it's going to come in the next couple of years. It'll be a 5-4 decision. I believe it's going to be a 5-4 decision in our favor, but there are going to be at least 4 justices who are going to say the Commerce Clause is all-powerful. This is their excuse on the liberal side. They say anything we do, live, breathe, whatever, can be covered by the federal government, and they can pass a law about it because there's a Commerce Clause. And I know the court decisions that have been rendered in the past, they don't say that. That's not the way the Founding Fathers believed. That's not what they meant by the Commerce Clause. It's been stretched far beyond the rubber band imagination you and I would have before, and it's time we set a definitive limit. And this court is going to have that opportunity to do that. And even in addition to that, if you weren't aware of it, there's a second ground for going before the court. 27% of Florida's budget today, our limited monies, go to Medicaid. Now, I don't know why our states agreed to these formulas years ago to administer Medicaid. It's a federal program, but we did. We said we'd pay something to do that. And as a result of that, things have gone on for quite a while. But today, the federal government in this bill, this law, came along and said, look, they didn't negotiate with the states. They just said, look, we're going to add millions of new eligible people to the Medicaid rolls. And you're going to have to pay, and you're going to have to do this, that, and the other. There is a limit under the 10th Amendment to what they can do. There's clear precedent for commandeering assets. They can't do that. They just simply can't do that. And we believe the states that are involved in this very deeply, and the NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business, has joined us, is that we will win on both of those provisions. Not just one on the individual mandate, but on the other. And you know what the good news is? There is no severability clause in this law. And when we win, when we get the court to decide on either one of these that is unconstitutional, the whole law is going to get thrown out. And that's what we want. Okay? Now let me tell you, let's go back to the basics. Why am I running for governor? Ingrid and I, my wife who's not here tonight, we've been married for 38 years. It'll soon be 39. We have 3 sons. We have 2 grandsons. We have a 3rd grandchild on the way. And that's what this election's about. It's about our children and our grandchildren and your grandchildren and making Florida a better place for them. I grew up in this state. My dad did before me. He's now 95 years old. And he lives on some of our family ranching properties up in Hernando County. I know what Florida's like, and I also know where we're headed. We're a state of 18 million people. We're going to grow to 20, 25, 30 million people. And as we grow, it's very, very important that we change some of the things that we've been doing. We have to. We're a state that has depended all my lifetime on 2 principal industries, travel and tourism and agriculture. And I will tell you right straight up that we cannot always depend on them. But as your next governor, I would do whatever it takes to market both of them. I want to fill every hotel room And every rested chair I can, it's critical that those two very foundational parts of our economy do well. I want to make sure that travel and tourism prospers. And as your next governor, I mentioned I grew up on a cattle ranch. I understand strawberries and nursery. I was up with the fern industry yesterday in Pearson, which is north of DeLand. I can tell you that I will do whatever it takes to market agriculture, to make sure the research is there, and to make sure that agriculture remains a strong base industry in our state. But we need to diversify. We have a Burnham Institute, we have a Scripps, we've done a few things, but for a state our size, we really haven't done what we need to do for our future generations. We need to have more high-tech, biotech, and aerospace. We need to compete with Texas and Mississippi. They're playing on our clock right now in luring new businesses, in luring headquarters to their state, in luring production facilities. We're not doing a good job of bringing capital, and we're not doing a good job of watering and fertilizing our own businesses. I have a plan that's up on the website, BillMcCollum.com, that Steve Forbes has vetted, and he says if it's fully enacted, it will create 500,000, 500,000 new jobs in Florida over the next 6 years, despite the problems we got in Washington. Now, by golly, I certainly hope it's not 6 years from now before we change all of that. But this will do it. This will do it for Florida. We can't wait for them. And it involves reducing the corporate income tax from 5.5% to 4.5%. It involves a 10-year exemption for certain new businesses in the high-tech and biotech world and aerospace that move their headquarters to Florida, and they also move their production facilities to give us what we need to get them a start. It's a commitment on our part that will get their attention and hopefully bring them here instead of going to Texas or somewhere else. And there's a permanent sales tax exemption for all high-tech equipment necessary for the high-tech, biotech, aerospace industries, and to build the fiber optic out in our state to the rural areas, which without fiber optic today, you cannot get these kind of good permanent jobs there. But it's more than a tax policy. I don't favor any tax increases, period. But I do favor making the tax laws work that we have and reducing them the right way to incentivize people to get their businesses here, get started, and so forth. Now, I'm not going into the whole economic plan, but I'm going to tell you that it also involves dramatically reducing the regulatory burdens that we have on our businesses. Florida's not California, thank goodness. We do have a balanced budget state. And we're not New York, and we're not even New Jersey, where at least Governor Christie's making some improvement. But we are one of the most over-regulated states in the Union. We're in the top 5 or 6. And while we think of the federal government interfering with our lives, you talk to a small business person today in our state. Talk to somebody who wants to go to Tallahassee to get a license, to get started on all the red tape they have to go through. Now, I'm not going to tell you we're going to do it with all regulations. We're not. We still have to have them for the environment and public safety and a lot of things. But it's way too complicated today, and we have to do something about that, and we will. And then in order to lure and grow business here, water and fertilize the small businesses, bring the capital here, we also have to have a dramatic improvement in our public education system, K through 12, through the middle school. I served on our board of governors for a while at the state university system. We have 11 fine state universities. 5 research universities. They produce a lot of ideas. You know the difference between Nevada and us? Well, obviously they got gambling out there that I don't pretty good cotton to, but they have a lot of tourism. And they're very dependent on it. They've been very hurt by this downturn. But I was talking to them the other day, some of the leaders out there, and they said, you know what you have in Florida we don't have? You have research universities. So we have a fundamental ingredient that a lot of states are envious of, but we're not making good use of it. A little business gets started. First thing you know, we don't have the capital for it. They make a deal with venture capital with somebody and they move to North Carolina, Texas, wherever. And we are not keeping them. So very important that we keep our eye on the ball on education and also on the rest of this. And then what we need to have in order to succeed in attracting business here and growing it is meaningful, significant litigation lawsuit reform.